Okay, viewers, let's just see what's going on.
Three leaders who showed up at Bondi. The first is Susan Lee, who has been with the Jewish community of this city every day since last Sunday's appalling massacre of Jewish lives in Bondi. She's attended the funerals. She's met the families who are sitting waiting in ICU. She's met the heroes. She's walked around Bondi talking to ordinary Jewish Australians who are fed up to the back teeth at the inaction of this government for the last 2 years. She understands the anger and she has taken action and called for action from day one. Susan, your leadership has been unwavering and the Jewish community of this country, the Australian community, understands it.
We have a government that sees anti-Semitism as a problem to be managed, not evil that needs to be eradicated. Everything must change from today in how governments respond. As the Leader of the Opposition in Australia, I will focus on the Australian national interest and the things that need to take place now after failures of governments in this country to tackle the scourge of anti-Semitism. I understand the frustration being expressed today by so many Jewish Australians, and I know it's really vital that we focus on the recommendations that Gillian Segal made in this report that was handed to the Prime Minister and his ministers months ago. Today we are calling on the Prime Minister once more to recall the Parliament before Christmas to implement the necessary laws to give what we have announced today legal effect. The Coalition will introduce draft legislation to make it an offence to provide repatriation assistance to a person who has visited a declared area or a previously declared area without the express permission of the Minister for Home Affairs and the Minister for Foreign Affairs. Under our package, my message to those who preach hatred, who talk about radical Islam in a way that hurts and harms their fellow man and women, who incite violence, who glorify terrorism. My message is this: if you are a non-citizen, you will be deported. If you are an Australian citizen, you will be arrested. If you are a non-citizen, you will be deported. If you are an Australian citizen, you will be arrested. If you are a non-citizen, you will be deported. If you are an Australian citizen, you will be arrested.
The second leader was the Liberal leader of New South Wales, Kelly Sloan, who last Sunday night left one communal commemoration to go to another communal commemoration, the Bondi commemoration of Hanukkah, where the shooting was still going on, and she herself put herself in harm's way and helped the many victims of the shooting that night. Her actions have been heroic. The third leader who was there last night is Chris Minns, the Premier of New South Wales, who's taken responsibility for the failures in policing and who has recalled his parliament today to do something about it. In contrast, there was a person there, the so-called Prime Minister of this country, Anthony Albanese, who never misses an opportunity to miss an opportunity. The Jewish community of this country cannot survive on the crumbs of this government and this appalling Prime Minister who is always late to the party and who wants the Jewish community of this country to live in his half measures. For 2 years we've been fighting his half measures. For 2 years we've put forward proposals in the Parliament to improve the security of Australians, and he's voted consistently against them. He's dragged his feet. He's claimed credit for things that were not his idea or that he did having been dragged kicking and screaming, and the community is sick and tired of it. I don't want to see the memories of the 15 Australians who died last Sunday. I don't want to see their memories being desecrated by this half-measure departmental review that is proposed by this Prime Minister. We need nothing short of a Royal Commission now. And if you're not going to listen to us, listen to Mike Friedlander, your very own Jewish backbencher from Western Sydney, who has the moral fortitude that you do not, to actually call for a Royal Commission, because we've got to get to the bottom of this.
The alleged role of these health professionals is just disgusting to me, where they have abrogated their sacred responsibility as health workers. The fact that they come from the area health service that I work in and live in our society is disgusting to me. We are all Australians. Our health workers deserve admiration, and the fact that they could behave like this is just revolting to me.
Dr. Freelander joins me now. Dr. Freelander, what was it that moved you so today?
As a person who's worked in health for half a century, we're taught that no matter which God you pray to or none, your most sacred responsibility is to care for the people that have come to you for health reasons. The fact that we could have people that work in the same area health service that I work in could suggest that they would kill people of a different nationality was just shocking to me, because I've worked in a system that I've been, a public hospital system that I've been very proud to work in for a long time. As a paediatrician, I've looked after people of every creed. The one question I never asked people was their religion, because it wasn't important. What is important, that as health workers, we care for people to the best of our ability, no matter what their religion or race or colour is. And the fact that health workers, who I think really are real outliers, it's not true of the health system, could behave in this way and suggest they would behave in this way of killing people of a different nationality was just shocking to me.
One of them has offered an apology. Do you accept that apology?
I think it's too early to talk about apologies. As I've said, I think that the justice system needs to run its course. Whether whatever happens to them, I hope that one day they can be forgiven for what they've done. But I don't think now is the appropriate time. I think they need to be brought to justice.
We can't have a situation for one more day in this country where the Jewish community, where any Australian is forced to live in the half measures and the delayed action and the talking out of both sides of their mouth that this Prime Minister has given us repeatedly for 2 years. Late to act on the doxing, late to act on the banning of Nazi symbols and salutes, done nothing about the anti-Semitism that is rampant on our campuses, still, even now, does nothing about the Jew hatred that is everywhere in the arts and cultural sector. And rather than looking at the root causes of what caused those gunmen to pick up those weapons in the first place, that only a Royal Commission will get to, he calls for another departmental review. This is the most shameful act in the history of our nation. Australia stands humiliated by the failure of leadership of this man, by the failure of leadership which has led to the extraordinary deaths in a terrorist act on the shores of Bondi, in this great city of ours. The Jewish communal leaders made their position very clear last night. Both state and federal called for a federal Royal Commission, nothing more, nothing less. Marnie Perlstein, who is an extraordinary Jewish communal leader, has started a petition on change.org, and I encourage every fair-minded Australian who is watching this program today to sign that petition, to call on the Australian government, the Albanese government, to bring about this federal Royal Commission. This departmental review is just another attempt at deflecting and minimising the Jew hate that has been allowed to go on in this country. This departmental review can't call witnesses, it can't compel evidence in a public forum, it can't allow the stories of the 2 years of anti-Semitic hate to be told and retold. It cannot root out anti-Semitism wherever it's to be found. It's only a Royal Commission that can do this. We demand the Prime Minister bring the Parliament back today to do what Chris Minns is doing, to listen to Susan Lee, to extend the hand of bipartisanship, and for once in his life, to take the real action that is needed to defeat the anti-Semitism that we are seeing and we have seen in this country for far too long.
Deserve better. Now, the Prime Minister can't change what happened over a week ago or the failures of his response so far, but he can change what he does today. So today, the Coalition releases the draft terms of reference for a Commonwealth Royal Commission into the Bondi attack and into anti-Semitism in Australia. This is about truth, accountability, and keeping Australians safe. In response to the horror at Bondi, the Prime Minister has announced proposals, but they're too little, they're too late, and they will take too long. Now, as a constructive opposition, we have listened carefully. And I invite the Prime Minister to sit down with me immediately to refine and finalise these terms of reference so we can establish a Royal Commission, a Commonwealth Royal Commission, before Christmas. Now, this is a good faith offer to work together on a bipartisan basis to establish this very much needed Commonwealth Royal Commission. But let me be very clear. Whenever the Prime Minister decides to bring the Parliament back, and it should have been today, I will be moving in the House of Representatives to establish this Commonwealth Royal Commission. Now, it's up to Labor to decide whether they support it or they don't. I hope they listen to the Jewish community, who so often, over the last 2 years in particular, have felt that their Prime Minister did not listen. And, Prime Minister, if you won't listen to the Coalition, if you won't listen to the Jewish community, maybe you will listen to your own members, to Mike Freelander, one of your Sydney-based members of Parliament, who today has also joined the long list of people calling for a Commonwealth Royal Commission. This Royal Commission will shine a light into every dark corner where anti-Semitism has been allowed to fester and grow. On our university campuses, in our wonderful arts sector, in schools, across civil society, across all levels of government. The Prime Minister has the power that he has always had to act on anti-Semitism. We call on him now to summon the purpose the nation is demanding. Now, he said only a few days ago, he will do whatever it takes. Well, this is what it takes. The New South Wales Parliament, just down the road, is sitting today. The federal Parliament should be sitting too. Prime Minister, the time for words really is finished. The Parliament should be sitting today so we can legislate the immediate responses to the support and setting up of our Commonwealth Royal Commission. We have work to do. In order to honour the dead, we must confront uncomfortable truths, hard truths. That's what this Commonwealth Royal Commission is about. And I want to add that it doesn't prevent any of the actions that we called for just 2 days ago to get underway right now.
We're going to go live now to Nationals leader David Littleproud. The timing of this so-called gas announcement, I mean, I might be speaking out of turn, but it just feels wrong to me when people are demanding a Royal Commission into the worst terror attack on Australian soil.
Well, all the bandwidth the Australian public has at the moment is trying to show support for the Jewish community and the people of Bondi. This government is tone deaf. It's been tone deaf for 2.5 years, ignoring the warning signs about the anti-Semitic behaviour on the streets of Sydney and Melbourne and even Brisbane. They've ignored it. And, when Australians simply want leadership, they want to look up to somebody to say they're going to fix this. That our society's drifted. It's been allowed to drift because of the ideology of Anthony Albanese, Penny Wong, to be able to go out there to ignore the warning signs and the direct warnings from the Jewish community about the threats that they're under. What they want is leadership. Chris Minns has been able to bring his parliament back today. We should be in Canberra today. And it's pathetic at best. But just stop the crap. I mean, you just can't keep talking political BS around this. Just because you don't want a Royal Commission because it mightn't give you the answers you want. You know what? We faced up to the robo-debt and we made mistakes in robo-debt. People lost their lives during robo-debt. But you know what? There are 15 Australians that were slaughtered last Sunday whose family deserves answers of a Royal Commission to understand exactly how state jurisdiction agencies as well as federal agencies have interacted over time. And if that pulls back into periods when we were in government, I don't care. The reality is Australians have had enough of the political speak. They've had a gutful of government ministers trying to run a protection racket for a Prime Minister that has become desperate and unpopular with the Australian people because he hasn't got the courage, like Chris Minns, firstly to come and say sorry, and secondly, he's going to do everything he can to fix it. This is a moment in our nation that needs to be grasped by its nation's leader. Instead, he's got a protection racket running around him rather than facing up and saying, you know what, we will leave no stone unturned. And that means a quick review by Dennis Richardson. Well, good luck, blow your hair back with that. But what we do need is a more forensic and granular one that will look and give us signs not just about what happened in Bondi, because this anti-Semitic behaviour hasn't just been in Sydney, it's been in Melbourne. And Victorian agencies are different to New South Wales agencies as they are different with Queensland. And we should see how that interaction and the agencies interact with one another in sharing information and see if anything's missed so that there is a learning. That this is all not in vain. That to those families, the tragic loss of 15 Australians has not been in vain, but instead we have a Prime Minister and a government that is just running for cover, running for Christmas, rather than facing up to it and having us all in Canberra, fixing this and fixing this today.
Well, David, our leader says that he will do everything in his power, but just not the Royal Commission. I mean, this isn't, as you said, a state-by-state issue. This requires a whole-of-Australia response. Isn't it imperative to consider the conditions that led to the attack and then the mechanisms which were or could have been available to prevent it, state and federally? Again, the issue has become more about what the government won't do or refuses to do, the calls that it's again ignoring. Why wouldn't you do everything in your power to get to the bottom of what happened? As you said, turn over every stone possible, what failures occurred, and to prevent it from ever happening again. To me, it's just, why wouldn't you do that?
Well, I don't think any reasonable Australian would think any different to that. Why wouldn't you do anything? 15 Australians were slaughtered. Their families have lost loved ones senselessly. And they want to know why and what could have been done. We owe it. I mean, our society has drifted to a juncture where we're no longer the most successful multicultural society in the world. The reality is we've let this drift. We've let our society drift. And we are going to hand over society to the next generation as the custodians of it now, one that potentially could be broken unless there is leadership, that we face up to. There are people that have been let into this country that would do us harm, that would do our way of life harm. And they proved that last Sunday night. And I don't know what more warning signs this Prime Minister needs, but I would have thought your primary responsibility as Prime Minister is to keep your people safe. And why wouldn't you throw everything at it, to look at every avenue, to turn over every rock, and to make sure that you show the strength and leadership, not only in your actions of looking at yourself and looking at the government and looking at agencies, but saying to this country that we're going to take this on full on.
David, we've run out of time, unfortunately. I would love to keep chatting to you about this, but thank you very much, as always, for your analysis.
There's something we don't hear enough about. In the early 2000s, while Australia was at war in the Middle East, and after attacks on Australians closer to home, the people who did some of the most important work in preventing further attacks weren't politicians. They were members of our Islamic community. Clerics, imams, parishioners, ordinary families. They reported threats. They shut down dangerous rhetoric. They made it clear that they wanted nothing to do with hatred or violence. They didn't want that poison brought into the country we call home, Australia. And that matters, because Australia has always been a mix of people, backgrounds and faiths. The unspoken rule was simple. You leave the old conflicts behind when you come here. So ask the question, what has changed? Why do we now live with this constant sense of threat and unease? Why our entire community is viewed with suspicion? Why do we see preachers openly speaking about hatred and violence? What happened to the people who once helped protect this country, even when they shared the same faith as those causing harm? The truth is simple. We stopped being serious about who we let in and why they want to be here. We let in those who needed to be protected, but we also let in their tormentors. That failure doesn't sit with everyday Australians, and it doesn't sit with Australian Muslims either. It sits with weak leadership, poor policy, and a refusal to confront hard truths. We dropped the ball. Now Australians of every background are paying the price.
We can't take away from the fact, first and foremost, that jihad is definitely part of our deen. And as Muslims, we should never ever shy away from this. And yes, there may be types of jihad, but of the peak of this jihad is that which the Messenger Muhammad ﷺ spoke about, and I'll read the hadith soon. And that is fighting in the path of Allah Azza wa Jal. A physical fight. Is telling us who He prefers. And Allah Azza wa Jal prefers those who go out and fight in His path, and He prefers them over those who sit idle.
So this is an Islamic cleric just a few kilometres from Bondi explicitly calling people to commit jihad, to commit acts of physical violence. Now, Albanese's response is, oh, well, let's introduce hate speech laws and this will just stop. Anthony Albanese, you need to cut the shit. Incitement to violence is already illegal, and if there was any political will to do something about it, you would have already arrested this guy and he would be in jail. Here's why Anthony Albanese will never do that. It's because Kevin Rudd changed the rules a couple of years ago so that to be leader of the Federal Labor Party, you don't only need a majority in the party room, you need a majority of the rank and file. And the Muslims have infiltrated the Labor Party. So Tony Burke, who's having secret conversations to bring over ISIS collaborators, ISIS brides, and Richard Marles, the Defence Minister, and Anthony Albanese, that care more about their own political power than the safety of Australia. Let me make one thing clear. Hate speech laws are an abomination. They have no place in the West, no place in a democracy. We already have laws against inciting violence. These aren't enforced against Muslims. If we have laws against hate speech, these will be enforced against you and I to stop us saying the things that we want to say. The real solution to this problem is not to erect fences in our own country, but to erect a border to make sure that we're not immigrating people from parts of the world who actually want to destroy us. People like this guy, well, they should just be deported.
Go to a jihadist nation where you can fit in. Shame on you!
The Prime Minister of Australia, Anthony Albanese. Federal Opposition Leader, Susan Lee. New South Wales Premier, Chris Minns, who has not missed a funeral, a synagogue service, or an opportunity to be with the Jewish community this week. Thank you, Chris, for your leadership.
There is a lot of people that come here from wherever they do, and rather than doing what they need to do to assimilate into the Australian values, the one that has made the Western world so much better than where we are from, they don't. They do what they need to do to try and change it, and that is not okay. And I'm an African, I'm saying that. I came here for a better life, and it gave me a better life. I've been able to provide jobs for so many people now because I get to work hard because Australia gave me a better life. And so how dare these people do what they do and come here and enforce things that don't belong to this place? If you wanted those things, stay where you came from. There is
I think the Prime Minister's attitude from the beginning of this crisis has been shock and horror, like so many of us felt initially. But then I think he went very quickly, and probably too quickly, towards, but isn't Australia great? Isn't it wonderful that brave people stepped up and more lives were not lost? Then he started talking about gun law reform, and that's where I think he completely misread the mood.
Saying, well, we've done more than any other government has done, and we've done this, and we've done this, and we've thrown money at this and that. And then a few days later saying, well, we clearly haven't done enough, and now we're going to scramble and pull all these other resources together and enact all of the solutions that you've been asking for months. I think that just betrays a leader and a government that is in a tactical war to try and bed this down, rather than a government that actually sees and diagnoses a problem and tries to fix it. I mean, if I had to use a word to describe the government over the past few days, it's that it's misdiagnosed the problem the entire time. I mean, what was the first thing that Anthony Albanese did? He started looking at gun law reform. That's great, but that's scratching at the edges. The root cause of the problem is this anti-Semitism issue. And for whatever reason, and we all have our theories on it, the government's just been in denial about how to handle this.
I think...
Are you racist?
Am I?
Yeah.
God, no.
That's what they try to make people think about you. You know that.
I did, because I questioned immigration. I wasn't against immigration, but I want to make sure that it's done in a managed way, that people will assimilate into the country and want to be Australians. And don't bring your rubbish from overseas and here to Australia and change this country into the place that you've left.
I am with you. I am originally from India, and I believe that if you come to Australia, the thing that unites us is that we're Australian. That
has to be.
Iranian here with another pro tip for anyone who's not from the Middle East. Christians in Iraq were not displaced. They were ethnically cleansed by Islamic terrorists. Isn't it interesting how all these pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine people who spend all day complaining about colonization all of a sudden seem to go silent when it comes to the destruction of Iraq's Chaldean, Assyrian, and Syriac Christian communities? That's because it's their side that's doing the genociding and ethnic cleansing. I mean, just go talk to any Iraqi Christian who had to choose between paying the jizya tax to their Islamic colonizers or being executed. And now you know.
If you're a threat, you're out. Why is it so safe? Because extremists are not allowed to wave the Al-Qaeda flag in the UAE. You can't do that in Saudi Arabia. You can't open up a Facebook page in Saudi Arabia and support the Muslim Brotherhood. And you can call it democracy and free speech and people have the right to express their views. With all due respect, if your view is to behead me, I will make sure you do not exist in the same society that I exist in. It's as simple as that. This is Muslim logic. This is the logic of the rulers in the Middle East.
Muslim countries, most of them, are better at this than anyone, yet Western countries feel like they know better.
A Muslim woman blew out a lit Hanukkah in Australia in honor of the Bondi victims. And here she is with her men walking up, and she just cannot help herself. And as you can see, she's recording it at the same time. There we go. They're laughing like it's a big joke. Super disrespectful. People were murdered, you know? The person who stopped one of the shooters was himself a Muslim guy. But these people, they don't care. They just don't like Jewish people. And yeah, here she is. She had to go back and finish the job.
Let me make myself absolutely clear first and foremost. All cultures are not equal. I cannot believe we live in a time that such a simple and objective statement is considered controversial. The fact that certain cultures are superior to other cultures is not up for debate. It is not racist to want to protect and preserve Australian values and culture. Because no matter what race we all come from, all must integrate under one Australian culture.
So once again, I'm going to ask you, do you now understand what they mean when they call for jihad? Do you now understand what globalize the intifada means? How many more Islamic terrorist plots need to be stopped? Or God forbid, how many more people need to be murdered in the name of Allah and Islam and jihad before we wake up and realize that we have a very serious Islamic radicalization problem in Western countries? you have one of two choices to make. You can be politically correct and wind up dead, or you can call it out for what it is and spare your life before the Islamic terrorists come after you. I know what choice I'm making. What choice are you making?